Everyone, it's your boy Matt. This is a continuation of the personal update for 17th of February 2026. There's a big difference between a political protest and what is a clear case of domestic violence. Okay? Political protest means you've figured out your cause, what you're doing it for. You're actually doing it for that cause. You've separated your motives, because a lot of people engage in political activity for narcissistic, self-aggrandizing reasons. Quite famously, many Greens, many environmentalists engage in that kind of behavior. And what I've found is that conservatives will often say, hey, that's just narcissistic self-aggrandizement. You're being a wanker, mate. You're doing this because you want to feel loud and feel special. You're not really analyzing the situation, and often you'll find people in a protest, around a third of the people at any given protest, and I'm saying this as a person who has protested before and sees it as a legitimate activity, but around a third of the people at any protest are fucking dickheads. Every time. And what I'm facing at the moment is not a protest in my home. I'm dealing with a straightforward case of domestic violence. A very well documented case of domestic violence where I've got hours of videos on YouTube talking about the same thing because we're still trying to get it to stop. Okay? This is not one of those things which is protected by free speech in any society. You cannot do this to a person. It's not motivated by that. What happened is that Michael and I were very close at a point in time, and at this point, it's really based on his emotional needs. And it's always been something like that. There's been this, it's been a breakup, okay? And I've never been homosexual for him. I think he's been homosexual for me. Him and I have been exceedingly close at one point. We are never going to be close. This guy has significant mental health problems. He's a bad man. Mainly because he can't put in context what is his mental health problem and what is his value-driven behavior. What I'm experiencing is not a legitimate protest. It's not a demonstration. It's an act of domestic violence by proxy. And it's being conducted by people who have association with Michael Armstrong and are providing information and are getting direction from Michael and people in his community. This is a significant breach of his restraining order, which he put down, again, not as an act of political protest, but as an act of aggression. It was intended as a means of marginalizing what I had to say. Because really, because I was complaining that he had fascists in his gym who were harassing me using cyber warfare infrastructure at ASD. This was true. This has been proven. This has been admitted. I'm still dealing with this problem. And it's not a case that I am trying to silence someone's freedom of expression. This has nothing to do with freedom of expression. This is targeted domestic abuse, which has already been ordered against by a court, and it's continuing. And at this point, it's on the police, who have, if they have had any they know this is happening. By the way, I shouldn't need to go to them to explain it. Like, as they are aware, I have not been informed fully of my legal situation, so it's difficult for me to provide a report to police regarding these things. So it's really on the police themselves, who know this is going on, who have monitored my situation and monitor me, to provide the appropriate legal intervention, which is a series of prosecutions. Mainly one prosecution, mainly to put Michael Armstrong in jail. This needs to stop. We are a society which requires free speech, but we are also a society which requires maturity and the ability to make sort of graduated definitions, okay? There's specific categories of things. And it's not a case of trying to silence someone. I've always made it very clear that he's welcome to be involved in things. I'm not opposed to him having his own message. I would very much like Michael to be able to bring in his own lane, because that would be an alternative replacement behaviour. I'm also reminded of the incident with Theo Aliku, who was a corrupt detective at the Australian Health Practitioner Registration Agency. And I'm reminded of the instructions I gave. I wanted someone to put sedatives in his fucking dog so it would shit on his carpet. And I stand by that, and that's a different thing. Because Theo Aliku engaged in corrupt behaviour. He engaged in an illegal activity as a person in authority where there was no means of me being able to get a legitimate outcome. Okay? There was no means of me being able to getting a procedural intervention through a bureaucracy, and that's why we began actively prosecuting him. And we should still continue to actively prosecute Theo Aliku. The reason why is because he did not engage in any of his behaviours as a public servant, right? He took malicious and sadistic pleasure in torturing and abusing me with his legitimate authority, okay? He used his authority as a very, very minor investigator might be too much of a compliment, even though it may be his job title, because he can't investigate. He doesn't have the intelligence for it. Certainly not in a field as complex or as tedious as healthcare, where he's dealing with people who at least have 20 more points of IQ than him, the dumb shit. But with Theo, what he did is that he deliberately intimidated me, he deliberately stopped me from working, and he stopped me from being able to have any job whatsoever, because I'm kept in this splint where on one hand I'm being abused by the police where I go to a job interview. I don't know if I'm sitting down with a police officer, and I've already had that experience multiple times. Every time I do a job interview, if it's by camera, it's seen by everyone. It's seen by the police. It creates problems. Worse still, we have the issue where if I'm kept in it gets even worse than this, because then I've got these people on the other end who are attacking me in my home, and they're going to attack me in my workplace. They're going to attack me everywhere I go, because I'm escaping gang violence. I'm escaping a gang leader. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has a fraternity culture. We're not so different from gangs. In fact, I would describe it as a gang. We are actually witnessing gang violence. That is what this is. Putting a person and actively trying to diminish them or control them in this way is an act of violence. And it's done by a group of people who do not have the wherewithal or maturity to be able to determine between, is this a protest where I'm acting out my values to try and seek a legitimate outcome, or am I doing this out of sadism and malice? And every time it's been out of sadism and malice. Specifically, we see this with Jake, we see this with them, because they're constantly going, oh, I won, oh, I got something, oh, we hurt him. And it's done in this cyclical way. There's not this interest in breaking the cycle of violence. Now, we have a fucking court order. I've tried many times to try and find a political way, and I've tried to say nice things, and I've tried to find a way to stop this cycle of violence. Michael Armstrong and these people are not interested in that, because I fulfill emotional needs for Michael, and he wants to use me to be able to further produce further publicity for him and to provide validation for him. This man has committed multiple illegal acts. The sympathy he is getting as this veteran figure and this cult leader is no longer warranted. All that has been asked is for him to be a gentleman and to help and to stop the cycle of violence. But he keeps doing shit. He keeps violating my space in this shelter. He keeps trying to communicate with me online. He keeps violating the terms of his restraining order. And I'm kind of worried because he's It's pathologically like this, and I don't understand why he is not electronically monitored. Because at this point, that's the intervention that the police need to intervene in. And they know that the Australian Federal Police, who watch my videos and monitor me and understand my situation, need to attend to, because I can't go to them to explain my situation in detail, because the nature of my situation and my monitoring and restraint and how I can describe the complexity of my situation is interfered with by court orders and the limitations of my rights. This means that I can't articulate and advocate to myself, to the police, so to protect myself against violence. We have now seen this violence play out for a very long period of time. It's played out very publicly. It's time for Michael Armstrong to go to prison. Have a good day, everyone.